Welcome back, folks, to the Mel Wright Show. This is episode 162. We've got a great special guest for this show. We've got David Wright of Benchmark Realty, LLC. David's an experienced real estate agent and realtor. He's based in Benchmark in Tennessee. David, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Surely, John. Thank you. Thanks for having me here. I do appreciate it. I have been in real estate for quite some time. As a realtor, going on 5 years. I'm also a landlord. I am an investor. I have flipped a couple of houses, and I've done most of the remodeling myself because I'm a very hands-on person, and I'm looking in diversifying into that area even more. So real estate, I understand forwards and backwards very well. I've done most of it myself. My background is historic preservation and building technology architecture. So I bring those things to the table. So I probably have a very unique and different experience from most agents out there because of my background. And I do enjoy it. And I love bringing these tools, information to my clients because they are getting a special treatment in that sense. They're getting understanding about buildings and particularly about real estate that a lot of agents don't have.
Oh, that's great, David. I've got my great co-host, Robert Newman. Would you like to quickly introduce yourself, Robert?
Yeah, I'd love to. My name is Robert Newman. I'm the founder of a real estate marketing company called Inbound Real Estate Marketing, and you can find my website at inbound.rem.
I'm going to throw it over to Robert. Robert's going to do the lead in the first half, and I might chip in the first half and the second half. Off you go, Robert.
Okay. So, full disclosure, David and I have worked together on some projects, but that's as far as I want to go in terms of that. I do want to say to our audience that is listening that this is definitely a departure for John and I. David is an actual working real estate agent, meaning that he is currently out there. Am I right when I say full-time pursuing real estate full-time? Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so, David, if you will, what I would like to say, it maybe pretty briefly, so you gave us a great rundown, a great recap of your experience inside real estate. And the objective of this particular episode of the podcast is going to be talking about your experience marketing. But for a moment, why don't you cover with us the journey of, so you're a landlord, you flipped houses, what made you decide to go out and get your real estate license, and then we'll transition into the rest of the conversation.
That's a good question. I've always been curious about real estate from graduate school onward because of all the architecture and study of the buildings. And it only made sense to go into real estate. I don't know why I waited so long. That's a big question. I should have done it many, many years prior. But I've also done professional photography, and that took a lot of my time. As a realtor, it gave me a chance to give back to people and share a lot of the knowledge I have gotten through the years in working with houses, because that's what I do is residential real estate. So giving back to people, helping people, and the commissions are nice there too.
Okay. And you've mostly done this work in Brentwood, or have there been other places that you've done something related to real estate?
The Nashville area. Brentwood's a suburb of Nashville. It's on the south side. And my work is primarily Nashville, Brentwood, Franklin, which is all three communities right here together. And that's where the majority of my work is. Otherwise, it might be just surrounding county, but that's it. This is the area. And that's the reason why I want the website to be Brentwood centric, because that's close to home, and I know the area very well.
Okay. And so Brentwood is the place that you practice real estate in. So why don't we transition slightly? 5 years of doing real estate, what are the various things that you've done to try to generate leads for yourself and get sales?
I think I've done them all, almost all of them. And I keep working on it every year, evaluating, see what I've done, what's working, what isn't. If it doesn't work, drop it. If you're spending money on something, you're not getting results, drop it. And as you and I have spoken, Robert, I've done that. I've been very active, dropping previous things that didn't work. started out working my SEOs. That's what everyone told me to do. Call my people. I built a list of about 500 people. They got tired of hearing from me, and they still do. And I called them, I called them, I called them. I put them on a drip campaign. I would email all these little facts and figures about homes that was coming to me from another company. And it's really, really good information. Actually, I have had 2 closings from that list of things going out to people via email. Then I changed companies because they had a good lead generation system. My coach was with the other company. She finally convinced me I should change companies and join them because their lead generation. It's called conversion, and it did work. There was a ton of money on advertising, Google paid ad clicks, AdWord clicks, and I generated some good sales from it. And then it started changing, and I went to another company, and I've been working my own leads and doing other types of marketing from there.
So I want to cover that for a second, because
Sure.
you touched on a few different things in a kind of broad way. So you said, I tried everything, and then you said you got a recommendation. So here's the way that I understood what you just said. You had a database of 500 people, and you worked that database to the point that you felt like the database was somewhat exhausted. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, most of those people are not moving. Their children are in school, going to high school, getting ready for college, and they're there for 10 to 12, 15 years. So why keep calling them all the time if there's not going to be moving? And they get tired of you calling every month or every quarter or once a year. Once a year is not bad. So the lead generation has always interested me. As a photographer, I always had websites. I always wrote blog articles. I worked on my SEOs through the years. So I have that background. And then conversion, I continued publishing blogs, trying to beef up. And every time you publish a blog with conversion, you'd actually get more leads that way. So that worked. And with conversion, those pay-per-clicks, you have to work them. And there is a technique to it. And I had a 4.8% closing of the leads I had through conversion. And doing that, you have to call the people. You would get dinged on a text. This lead has just visited your website and signed in. Well, you've got to call them within, say, a couple, 3 minutes or 5 minutes, or text them. Texting has gotten to be a good way because a lot of people won't answer their phone. And it automatically goes into a drip campaign, and that helped. So you just stay after those people. You call them every week or two, and then you would find out how serious are they in looking for a home, or are they just seeing what's available. You filter through the hundreds of leads I got from it. And then you find the ones you want to work with. Some you want to work with now, they're ready to go now. Others, it would be 6 months to a year before you can actually convert them, and you just stay with it.
Okay. So you had a conversion website which was working for a while. You had a 4.8% conversion rate when you were using that site, which I'm gonna assume it stopped working, or because if you still had that conversion rate, you would still be with them. Is that correct?
I probably, maybe not. The company I was not as fond of, and that was one of the reasons I changed, but the leads truly dropped off. They got to be leads that you could not work. They were not serious people, and you can't make money on a $50,000 or $100,000 property here. First of all, they're not available now. Secondly, there's just not enough commission to drive 100 miles, 4, 5, 8, 10 times trying to show properties that they're not going to buy. So I was ready for a change, and then I changed, and then I continued working my SOIs, changed websites, because the conversion came with the company, wasn't mine. I could have continued it, but I didn't because the leads were falling off, and I didn't have the thousands of dollars to put into it every month in advertising, and that's what they were doing. The owner, along with a mortgage company, were putting in a sizable amount of money every month, generating leads for all the folks in the office.
Okay. The owner of the brokerage that you work for?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. And were you contributing a budget to conversion at the time that you were doing it?
Yes, I was. It's a small amount, but I did. That's the only way you could get conversion with that company is to offer $100 a month, which is minimal for what you're getting from it.
Okay. So you spent $100 of your own money, and the brokerage probably wrapped up every single agent's budget, and then they threw it to the conversion platform. Is that roughly
That's
the way
correct.
that it worked? Okay.
Yes.
And then you decided to stop doing that. And I know, and you know, that you've been focused on on SEO, and the experiences that you're sharing with using other platforms, I think, was one of the reasons that you started to move in the direction of wanting to own something that you were in control of. Is that, am I saying that correctly?
Absolutely, because when I left conversion, I lost all of it, lose the leads because they belonged to the agency. So I had to start over, and I had visited a seminar, and this one company was talking about their website, so I called him up, and the sales guy was absolutely phenomenal. He's still a good friend today. And I joined them, and I tried it, and I was doing pay-per-clicks following the conversion route, except I was paying for the pay-per-clicks in addition to writing blog articles. And I did this for almost right at a year. And the pay-per-clicks had some good leads. None of them ever materialized. And that was disappointing because I just came from 4.8% conversion to 0 conversion using the same techniques, but I couldn't convert any of the people. So I was writing blog articles, but I noticed when I blog, I can never find the articles online. Come to find out, Robert, this company, which is a very well-known company, was not connected to Google. The website was never connected to Google.
Are you trying to not mention their name on purpose?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, all right.
But it just, that's one of the first things you do. You set up a website, you set up, and so you shake hands with Google. It wasn't.
Okay, all right. So went to 4.8 to 0%. Whoever this company was, you stopped using them. You did mention that you were spending your own money. Can I ask you how much? Just again, I'm just trying to give for our users a clear understanding of like what your journey and evolution has been inside the real estate marketing space.
Absolutely. I have to think back on that because that's been almost 3 years. I want to say the website was a couple $100, and there was another $150 for the Google AdWords that they were setting up for me. And I told them the areas I wanted to work, and they set those up, the campaign, and then it would run. And I generated about 100 leads in a year's time. That's a lot of leads.
For $1,000, you generated 100 leads.
For about $350 to $400 a month. Over that about a year's time, it generated about 100 leads, but 0 converted. And after I left that company, I continued working those leads for another year, the ones that were interested, and still could not materialize any profit from it. So that's when I dropped that company, went to another company because they were local. And I thought, well, we can do something with them. And he also believed in blogs. I had a feeling because he was posting blogs onto the website 2 or 3 times a week, which sounds great. However, when you buy blogs or search blogs from other sources and you incorporate those into your blog system, Google's going to punish you because you're duplicating your content. It's not original. It may be relevant, but it's not original content. And I knew that was the case, but I was still writing my own blogs. I had the idea, which we're still doing now, is Brentwood is my area. I'm tired of driving, say, 1,200 miles to go show houses for one client. Maybe half a dozen times. And this is true.
Right.
And get nothing from it. And they back off and not decide to do anything. So I took Brentwood because that's home. I live there. I've been there for many, many years. I know the area, know the neighborhoods, I know the builders. And I became Brentwood centric. And I started writing blogs every week on Brentwood. What I did the first week would be the numbers because the numbers would come out for the first of the month. I would look the prior month, see what sold. What areas did they sell in? What was the best performing neighborhood? What was the next best performing neighborhood? And I wrote a blog. Those are about 1,500 word blogs, okay? Right. Every month, statistics on Brentwood. And then the next week, then that blog would be that neighborhood that was the top performing neighborhood for Brentwood for that month prior. So let's say this is August, I would write about July. Here's the Brentwood neighborhood, say Witherspoon, outperformed in July. So I'd write about that. And then the next week, I'd write something else. Again, Brentwood-centric. And to continue this, and the next month roll over, then I'd write about August. And I did this week after week, month after month for a solid year. Come to find out, with your help, because you analyzed this website, and you told me it was a social media site, it was not an SEO site, and every blog I posted, except one, never made it to the face of Google. And I knew there was an issue because I'm always checking my statistics. I'm always looking up the articles I post. Why am I not showing up? I'd go through 10 or 15, 20 pages of Google pages
Right.
was showing up. Something's wrong. What's wrong with this new website? And I was paying $300 a month for it.
Okay. We're gonna take a break right now.
Oh,
sure. John, if you'd handle,
sure.
you could handle that.
We're going to take a break, folks, and we'll be back in a few moments. And we're going to delve deeper in David's journey.
I'll explain after the break. After we come back, folks, I'm going to explain what were some of the things that we noticed. But go ahead.
Yeah, sure. We'll be back in a few moments, folks.
I do get a little animated.
Right. We're coming back, folks. We've had a fascinating conversation with David Wright, an experienced realtor based in the great state of Tennessee. Back over to you, Robert.
Thanks, John. So I am going to say that for those of you that are listening, there's a lot of companies out there that unfortunately, and there's a couple of different things that happen. There's companies that have good intention and they build a product and they are hitting what they know the hot points are that you yourself are hearing, such as write blogs, promote them socially. But the thing about Google is that you have to have a site that's readable and mobile friendly, and you have to have some method of promoting your content, such as backlinks that are coming into it. And so you have to write blogs in other places, not just your blog. And so these steps, if they're not taken, you can produce great content. Like I've seen David's content. It's great content. It's just there is no way for Google to see it, and that's what we found out when we took a look at the website. So and which introduced the two of us together, which is how he's ended up on the show today. All right, so you went through that evolution, David, and you did these blog posts. Are you doing right now any form of direct advertising? Because I know, and you know, that you've done an SEO site that you do own, and that things are slowly building up with that site. And you're seeing some progress there on that site that looks more promising than with other sites. I believe
it's already gotten a couple leads. It's only 3 months old or so. So that's very enlightening in comparison to the prior two websites, which did not really generate leads unless I paid for those leads through Google AdWords.
Right. And every time that you were paying for these budgets, I'm just curious, was there ever a number consistently that people were throwing at you in terms of, hey, you should put X amount of dollars into, you're calling it Google AdWords, I'm going to say the word direct advertising, because anytime you pay for Facebook or Google, all you're doing is you're saying, you have traffic over here, I want it over here, and that's direct advertising. You're going to pay to get people from point A to point B. And it doesn't really matter if it's Facebook or it's Google. You're just paying to send people from one place to the next. So how much was that number that people would always throw at you, or was there ever a consistent one?
I don't know if I've ever heard a particular set amount of money. Some people might say 500,000 a month, which I was not willing to do that. I like to do things in life other than just be broke paying for advertising, doing Google AdWords or pay-per-clicks. And so I was very limited on that. Also, changing companies, it takes a while to bounce back because you've changed companies. I don't know why it's that way. People try to explain it to me. It still doesn't make sense. After you change companies, it's 3 or 4 or 5 months before you see your next sale. And that's ended up being true. I think mine was about 3 months before I had my next sale. But that was the thing. I also mentioned, too, I'm pretty well versed in SEOs. I've studied it for a long time. And I knew, and Yoast was the best thing in the world. Both sites had Yoast, and I learned how to use Yoast. I learned how to search those keywords, and I knew how to insert those keywords just enough within the copy so it wouldn't be stuffing, okay? I'd use it 3 or 4 or 5 times. Sometimes then I'd come up with a second, third keyword insert and work those because Yep helped me a lot there. I did alt words on my photographs, and then I wrote captions with the keywords, everything Yoast suggested, and I highly recommend Yoast. It's free. Why not use it on a WordPress site? So that's what I did. And then I would take that blog and the location of it from the website and go to Facebook and post it and write a little teaser. But they want to read the article, they have to go back to the website, because I was trying to generate interest from multiple sources. I do Google Plus, do the same thing there. I would not post the entire blog, because then it becomes duplication. I'd write a teaser about it, include a photograph, and then have a link going back to the website, because I was trying to develop backlinks to my website from pretty sound sources there. So I did that with several places. LinkedIn was another place I did that. I had built a pretty good following. Every time I would post an article on Brentwood, 10 to 12, 14 people would go in and look at it. Some would write about it. Some would, give you a like and that sort of thing. So I had a following going there. I know it was working, but the website was dead, just dead.
Right. So for our audience, guys, I am gonna throw in something here. I try to make these a little more free flowing, but I'm gonna say to all those people that might be going, "Oh God, yeah, that's happened to me. I know exactly what David's talking about." I'm gonna say this. You can have a really great website, and there are many companies out there that actually build a good-looking website that the search works fast. It's got a good mobile experience. I could list 5 real estate website development companies that do that fairly well, and some of them are very inexpensive. But here's the thing: that at that point, it becomes, how are you suggesting that people give you their information? In my world, we call that conversion. And here's the sad thing. There are not very many real estate marketing companies at all in any vertical on any company that do that part of the process very well. So you have a good looking website that does search correctly, and the salespeople oftentimes tell you, oh, if somebody's really interested in the property, they'll just fill out a contact form. I've been doing this 11 years, and I've seen thousands of real estate websites, no over exaggeration. And I am telling you beyond a shadow of a doubt that the people that actually do that are 1 in maybe 10,000. The numbers are astronomical, because everybody's got, and I see John nodding, but he knows it too, everybody's got a pull for their intention. You have to insert a very gentle way, and usually the best way to do that is a trade on value. And what I mean by that, and David, you and I have talked about this, so please just humor me for a second. But what I mean by that is, for instance, you're looking at a site, you've done 50 searches, and you've got no annoying pop-ups, and everything's great. But then you start to go look at really detailed photos, like a list of 50 photos that connect to a single property, and you want to see them all. And then finally you hit a registration gate that says, hey, listen, you've been looking at a lot of stuff on my website. And if you want to keep looking, you can continue to do as many searches as you want. But if you want to continue to see these photos in this particular way, you now have to give me your name, number, and information. And then it's not enough to explain why you're asking. You must then also explain what you're going to do with the information. In other words, I'm going to call you, or you can ask me not to call you. Because when somebody understands, or I'm never going to share your information with anybody ever, I promise. Your data is really important to me. These are the ways that you transmit value in what's called the conversion process, the process where you take a stranger and now try to make an introduction to them. And the way that you do that is critical, and it's one of the most important parts of the entire process. And what you're describing is a lot of sites that just don't do that very well, or at all. In some, because it sounds like you've had plenty of experience with sites that have done it not at all. Is that a correct?
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
What you've been
It's
saying.
unfortunate. You go back and look at all the money you spent, you have nothing to show for it. So that's what I said earlier. I try something, I get a fair amount of time, I set my parameters. If it doesn't perform, they're out. Why isn't it working? Something's wrong somewhere, because I'm doing all I can, and I feel like I've been fairly well trained on the antics of Google. And Google does change their style of business all the time, almost annually, if not more often. You've got to keep up with it. And that's what I've done. Now the idea of writing 1,500, 2,000, 3,000 word articles is becoming the norm, because Google needs a way of separating all these websites popping up out there. Hundreds, if not thousands of websites come online every day. So how do you determine who's going to be the best? Who's going to be not necessarily the best, who's going to be at the top ranking of page one? Who's going to be the third or fourth line down? And that's where your SEOs come in to play, and among a lot of other things.
Well, yeah, and there's not many that you can refer to. For those that are listening, if you want to educate yourself on SEO, if you're not going to go to Inbound REM, you can also go to Neil Patel or Moz.com. These are big websites that do SEO education. But at the heart of it, everybody's going to say the same thing. I've said the same thing to David. It's always going to be the same thing. It's expertise, authority, and trust. You want to somehow convey that you have expertise in the areas that you're servicing, right? I've said that to you before, right, David? It's a matter of, and then how do you transmit it? Do you write a blog post? Do you film a video? Do you do both? But when you're thinking about communicating to people via Google, what you want to really think about is, how can I address a question that I know my clients are asking without, like, in a educational way? Because if you can do that, if you can figure out, one, the question that they're asking, two, not too many other people have provided the answer, I'm telling you right now, 60% of your SEO battle is done right there, just by doing those two things. And the rest of it is, how do we get your content found? How do we send some signals? But once Google sees it and they measure the behavior of the people who are viewing it, like how many times do they click on it? How long do they stay on the site? That kind of thing. If you've got a good answer to a question that people are asking, I promise you, you're going to do really well in the search engine. And if you always have the idea of, in your mind, of, I want to provide a great answer for my users, you're going to be safe from most of what Google does. Would you agree with that, John?
Yeah, I totally agree. Another good resource, if you're trying to learn, is Brian Dean's website, and he has a very active YouTube channel. He's the guy that in the SEO world, developed a technique called the skyscraper technique. It's well known. I'm sure Robert is aware of Brian Dean. But the reason why I like Brian Dean is I think he gets across some of this stuff in quite a good way. I don't know what you feel about that, Robert.
I love Brian. He's another one, and there's also Gotch, Gotch there, and Adam White. These guys aren't as well known as Brian Dean or Neil Patel, but they're amazing. I think that Adam White is putting out the best information that you'll ever find on link building. But I feel like both Gotch and Adam White are like advanced people.
Yeah, they're advanced. I think Brian does, if you just kind of know the basics and you want to know a bit more, I think that's a good intro. I think it's time to wrap up the podcast part of the show. We're going to continue the discussion, which you'll be able to see on the Mel Wright website and YouTube channel. But for the actual podcast of the show, we're going to wrap it up. So, David, how can people find out more about you and your business, basically, David?
Oh, I'm easy found. I'm out there. You can find me through Google+, David Wright, Realtor, Real Estate Refined, Brentwood, Tennessee. I'm on Facebook. My Facebook business page is called The Wright Dream Home, WRIGHT. And then the website is there too, BrentwoodTNHome.com. So I'm out there. I'm all over Google, all over Facebook, LinkedIn. I try to stay connected. The other things I do, I network like crazy. And that's the other thing I do. Yeah.
That sounds great. And Robert, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to, Robert?
Well, everything, I'm on every channel, Facebook, and it's all under Inbound REM. Like, you can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, you can find me on YouTube, you can find me on my website, inboundrem.com. But if you're trying to just like really quickly learn something about me, inboundrem.com is the best way to do so.
And if you want to find out more about Mel Wright and how we get leads through Facebook for our clients, just go to the Mel Wright website. We've got over 160 interviews from experts, from real estate agents. It's a real university of knowledge if you're trying to help your business. And if you want to speak to me, you can book a free session with me, and we can discuss and see if we can help you with your real estate lead generation. We'll be back next week with either expert or real estate agent, or we'll be covering something to make you a more effective real estate agent. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye. Right, Dave. Can I give some feedback about the interview so far? We're still online. It's really fascinating. What really fascinated me about your local area, Benchmark. Can you give us a quick outline what kind of area it's like? Is there a lot of retirees, or what is Benchmark? What drives Benchmark, and what the type of people that live there?
Okay. Nashville is a very interesting town. It's a very hot city to be in. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the country. Population, about 650,000 people. And it's a metro style of government. The whole county and the city are one and the same, which is sort of unusual. Has been that way since the early 60s. Brentwood is in the next county over. It's in Williamson County. Williamson County is one of the most wealthiest counties in the United States. Brentwood home median price is running about $750,000 a home right now. And then the town below it is Franklin. Franklin's a unique community. It's a very historic, charming. It's one of the first Main Street projects in the United States as defined by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Franklin is also now the #1 retirement community in the United States. And you have to wonder, why? Why Franklin? Because I've asked the same question. The answer is because so many corporate people moved here. So many people want to live in Franklin. It is the most charming place you've ever seen. It's so nostalgic, so vintage. I have all the buildings on Main Street, turn of the century and before. Because the children live here in the corporate world, guess who wants to follow being near the children and the grandchildren? The parents. And they're coming here in flocks to retire in the Franklin area.
Right, thanks for that. So you're getting people that knew the area that have moved out, and these are just generalistic statements, but you're getting a lot of people when they get in to a certain age and they're looking at retirement, they're looking at moving to that area. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. Another reason is because we have zero income tax in Tennessee.
Right. It's a bit like Nevada. So the reason why I'm asking David these questions is over one, different areas, different communities have different drivers. It's a bit like business in general, folks. And general marketing systems can generally work, but there are going to be certain circumstances because of the area and the population and the basic drivers, they're not going to work. Now, with you, it looks to me that you need to write articles and information that would be of value to the target audience, which you've just outlined. Firstly, have you been doing that?
Yes, I have.
Right.
And particularly some of the neighborhoods. My background's history, research. So because of historic preservation, when I write an article about a neighborhood, I dig. I find information no one's never written about and put in about that article. That's the reason why my blog.
Let's just stop there, because that sounds fantastic, and I'm sure you're doing a great job. But the puzzle to me through the conversation with Robert is, obviously your present website's getting a lot more results, but I'm talking about your past efforts, and you're doing this research. By the sounds of it, you're writing some really interesting material, but you're saying, it was partly due to other vendors' incompetence, but also that you wrote these things and you just didn't get any traffic to the website. Do you see what you got to understand is you've got to choose an article that you can write about that you would be interested in, but you also got to do a bit of research, keyword research, to find a title that enough people are searching on to make it worthwhile for you to write that article. Is that making any sense, David?
It does, absolutely.
Now, a lot of agents don't do that. So they write a really great piece, but nobody's actually searching under that their main title, their main in like H1 title, which is going to be not the only, but a main driver for Google. So if you write a piece and the title and the main body of the piece is it might have great information, but nobody's actually doing any searches to find that, it's all a bit of a waste of time. Would you agree with that, Robert?
Yes.
And you see a lot of agents do that. So on reflection, do you think you were doing enough research about, are people actually looking for the subject that I'm going to write about, David? Or did you, on reflection, do you think you just thought, I like that subject, it has relevant to my area, I'm going to write something about it?
I approached it differently. I would do a Google AdWord search, and I kept a list of the top, say, 50 AdWords, the words that Google was looking at and ranking. And I would, I forgot what tool I used. It would show me the ranking. It would show me the pay-per-click price per word. And I picked out the top, say, the top 20. And those I used a lot because that's what Google was using as a way of determining the value of that word by the pay-per-click value. And I would use those words.
That's Robert might disagree with me. I'm going to say something now. That sounds really logical, but the problem with that, what I've found, and I have in no shape or form am I an SEO expert like Robert. This is just, I'm just basing this on my experience, is that if you're talking about a geo market like your town, you're not going to get what you really should do is look at what others think. Put yourself in the mind of the person that's looking for information. Put yourself in the mind of your target audience, and then write down a load of questions that if you were doing research on your computer about, you're a retiree and you're thinking about moving to your area, what would you put in to the browser to find the kind of information that person would look for, right?
Right.
And then use the browser where you clean the cache and you clean the cookies out, right? And then you put that list in, and you see what's written, and it will show you the amount of queries also, and then you look at the material that's been written, right?
Yes.
And then you list the ones that are getting, that look like that's getting the most interest, and you make a judgment call. Can I write a piece that's more interesting, more useful, has more value than the present ones that have been written? Is that making sense,
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And then that's what you do to write your articles. So I think you're missing out that you. I think you're getting a little bit too technical about this in some ways, which is unusual. But I think really you've got to put your mind in the mindset of your main audience that you want to be useful to, really.
Yes.
Did that make any sense, Robert?
Well, yeah, you've just outlined a basic, that's the skyscraper technique right there, is going out, finding out what's ranking, doing something better. And it is a rock solid way to approach SEO. The vast majority of the starting of my website was built using the SEO skyscraper technique, which is exactly what we're talking about. So David, it's exactly like going out and finding a blog post that says the 3 best things to do in Brentwood, and you happen to see that it's ranking for the keyword living in Brentwood, right? And you decide that, oh, gee, I'd like to be on the first page for living in Brentwood too. So then you go and you look, and you go, well, this article is a little bit like, it's not that it's bad, it's just it's only talking about 3 places, and Brentwood has 50 great places to look at. So depending on how deep you want to go down that content well, what you do is you'd say the 10 best things about Brentwood, and then you'd write a slightly better detail, which I personally think as a historian and with all your knowledge should not be that hard to do, considering who you are as a person. It's us who are analytically minded, who are detail oriented, that can actually have the ability to write great content, because we ask the question when we read somebody else's piece. We understand, well, that was a really great article I just read, and now I have 50 other questions. A really great content piece addresses some of those 50 other questions, and you as the writer would put them in there. You'd go, okay, these are the things I'm asking myself when I see this top 3 things to do in Brentwood. I'm going to just do half of what I'm thinking of, and then I'm going to write that piece and put on my blog. Anyway, that's my answer.
Yeah, I think that's great, because I think there's something missing, because somebody of your great knowledge of your area, and also I've got the feeling you enjoy writing about that subject, about those subjects and that. I'm really puzzled why you hadn't got better results, really. I think there's no one reason. It's a multiple of different reasons, which you touched during the interview. And another thing at the beginning of the interview, because you said you had this list of 500 people, we've had ongoing conversations about this, is that I can see it. Those people might not be moving, David, but they might know people that are, or who are thinking of selling, right? Yes. And it's called top of mind, omnipresence. We've covered this a bit. I think you should divide. You should have a general list of anybody you've touched who's contacted you through the website, through any kind of paid campaigns. You should then have a list of anybody that can actually recognize you, recognize your face, or, if they recognize Dave Wright, Realtor, they would realize who you are. And then you should have a really close list, which are people that you've actually done business with. And then you should send content, and that content should be different for those 3 groups. Is that making sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
What I find is that most agents send the same content, and they don't divide their list up into that. And if your list gets big enough, you can subdivide it even more. But I'm talking about when you're starting, that you should look at these 3 buckets, as I call them. Mm-hmm. And then you need to send content to those buckets, and how often you send content and the content that you're sending to those different 3 buckets would be very different. And by that, you would get much better results. Is that making sense?
It does. Absolutely.
I'm going to take this. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
The other thing is, are you actively building your database and your list? Are you really? And how big has your database got, David?
Well, a lot of people dropped because they unsubscribed, or they just don't read their emails. So I do add to it, and it's staying even. I have my clientele that I've sold homes to, helped them buy homes. It's a different group, and I market to them. I do call those people probably every 6 months just to say hello, see how they're doing, call them birthday. And I want to start doing a postcard or note card to them on the anniversary of the home purchase.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's all right. You're going to say something, Robert?
Just real quickly, everything that John says, I agree with. I am going to say, though, that last show that we did here, David, because I know that my email kind of tipped you into the fact that I do a podcast. I want to say to you that the last guest that we interviewed, B.D. Carmichael, he was really brilliant at discussing some specifics on how to work lists. And if you want to pick up maybe some ideas that are specific and actionable, you might want to listen to that last show, and just because he was really he was really good. So you know, we all have expertise. Like, I'm an SEO guy. I'm not really, you know, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination in email marketing. I'm basic at best. I think that, but he was really good.
You explained it very well. The last thing to wrap up and then see if Robert, before we end this part of the show, is that I wanted this bit off the podcast to give you actual feedback, and so you got something from it, David. Is that I lost track? Oh, there's two factors. Are you using video a lot more? Are you trying to utilize video on your blog posts on Facebook and other social media?
That's an area, John, I want to work with in a big way. I've been saying that for some time. Every time I do a closing, I take my camera with me and I do video of the closing. And I've got to finish editing those and then send them off and get them on the website, because I have quite a few of those I've developed. And I've started shooting video of open houses. When I put a house on the market, I'll go through and video it. Nashville's been such a hard market that a house sells before I can finish the video.
Yeah.
And that's,
I think to give you feedback, I think that's a great thing, but also I think you're missing another great opportunity there because of your great knowledge this is something you're passionate about and you like talking about. Actually doing regular bits about the history of your area, about architecture, about different buildings, doing a series on a semi-regular, doing live Facebooks and doing a series about your city and about the architecture and history of it would be a great way of increasing the amount of people that follow you and you're building your brand, basically. I think that's something you should really look at doing, right? And if you ever need any advice on that, I'll be more than happy to have a chat with you on Zoom about that. The last thing is, I think it's a bit of a generality, but I think most of them, hopefully Robert would agree, is that with Google AdWords, it tends to attract buyers, right? But obviously sometimes buyers can become sellers, right? But that's the general, that's what, with Facebook, it tends to attract sellers. So keep that in mind about when you're putting a lot of money into Google AdWords, is based on my experience, they tend to attract buyers. So that's another factor. Got any comments before we wrap it up, Robert?
Well, three things before we get off. So David, I'm going to add on to what Jonathan said. The reason Facebook's more successful with sellers is because you can add a landing page in their sponsored links and it's going to say, what is your home worth, with a visual. You can't do that on Google. The display ad functionality in Google is not nearly as good as it is with Facebook. So that's the reason that seller ads do better on Facebook, plus the audience targeting is much better. So if people are doing general queries inside Facebook that say, like, that involve homes, that's the people that you can get on your list, which is nice. So that's what I'm going to say about that. And then second, I had an idea while we're all talking here, which is, I feel like you yourself are representative of the audience inside Brentwood. And if we're going to give some advice, I'm going to say the fact that you're an investor and that you flipped a couple homes inside your home city, I think that if these are retired CEOs and corporate people that are C-level or above, like, these are the types of guys and gals that can quite literally look at Brentwood and go, I can pick up a home, an extra home, and I can flip it or turn it into a rental. Like, I think that would not be so uncommon. And the fact that it's a hot market is going to make some of those people pay more attention to that, not less, because they understand this is a buyer's market. So they might be wanting to look for a deal because they're clever, but nonetheless, so what does that mean to me? That means there might be some room for you to write some blogs on your very unique and specific experience that says, this is what you do to improve a home that you've just bought to either increase the rental value or to increase the resale value, like stuff like that. And you get in front of those people and build trust with them if they're investors. Guess what, David? That's a rock solid way to get in front of them, get on their mailing, like get them on your mailing list, and then sell them their next home somewhere along the line.
And it just come to me, the last point I want to make, David, but you've got to check there's enough, I call it nicheifying. I'm not even sure there's a word actually, nicheify. You've got a lot of agents don't niche enough. If there's enough people, I would suggest, but I don't know your market or the person that does know the market, is that if you could specialize in high value historic buildings, homes, and that's the thing that you market yourself as if you're looking to buy a historic home or sell a historic home that's, you know, of such and such value, obviously you don't promote it in such blatant ways, but all your material attracts that type of buyer or seller. I think that would be a good idea. I don't know if you do that now, because the only problem of niching or nicheifying, as I say, is it's a bit scary, because by doing that, you feel like you're pushing away possible commission checks. But in the long term, it's counterintuitive, but in the end, it makes you much more powerful a local brand and much more easier to target the audience that you want to get in front of.
Yes, that's true. In fact, I've been brought in by other realtors to consult on houses as to what has been done to them through the years, how much of the original fabric is left, how much has been destroyed. So, and I do have a bit of a reputation there. Unfortunately, Nashville doesn't respect its past that well. It really doesn't. It's there's a long story there, but there is a Nashville.
So that blew me up, but I was trying to be helpful.
Beautiful homes. But what these developers do, these builders, they go in and they strip out all the original material and they make it modern. And that's just that's the way it's done. People want an old house to live in, but they want it to be modern. The only thing left original in that house is the facade, the front. That's it.
Well, but then you become the niche about having a facade and having it all modern inside. Then.
Yeah, and it's pretty well known. It's just the way it is here, unfortunately. Yeah.
It's the same in England, though. Basically, they want an old-looking house on the outside, but inside they want all the amenities. It's exactly the same.
Not like France.
Right? No, well, that's the French for you. I think we end the show. I love them, really, especially French women. They're the best, actually. So I'm really I'm digging a ditch here, folks. And we can end the show now before I do more digging. And we'll see you next week, folks. Bye.
Thank you.